Hello, everybody. So it's been a long time, hasn't it, since I made a video. I did a stream. I think last did a stream with Shin and Tiffany. There was a few problems because the computer was my computer was playing up, and it was just hard work. And I've been busy with work and whatnot, and just so that's why I've not done anything in a while. But I have been thinking, as I often do, about Lorne every now and again. It's quite a prevalent figure in my life, which is fucking disturbing. But of course, if you're listening to this, I would imagine it in yours as well. It's a strange situation, isn't it? But of course, it's something that I like to think about. Not often. I don't sit down reading the chat log anymore or stuff. But every now and again, I think about it, because the last few years of my life have been not shaped but changed in a few ways because of him. Really, it's pretty weird. And with the amount of videos I've done on street and streams I've done, it's like, surely there's nothing else to say. But you're talking about a human being who's got a crazy backstory. Any one human being is infinitely fascinating. Any one creature is infinitely fascinating. Now, whether you want to admit it or not, Lorne is more fascinating than any creature that's ever lived. As for in the I mean, he's more fascinating than any animal. Even like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? I've just compared Lorne Armstrong to a fucking dinosaur. You get the point I'm trying to make is human beings are infinite, have got an infinite depth to them for many reasons. Depending on everything is relative, right? So it depends on the perspective. On a surface level, he's quite a simple character. There's not much going on there. He's a bit like a serpent, going out seeking his prey. He's a predator. But the depth to him, there's as much depth to him than any other human being. We're all the same, ultimately. There was a, it's weird. I've been listening to the song "I'm the Walrus" by the Beatles. You ever heard of them? And Oasis did a cover of it. Can you believe that? I've been recording for 2.5 minutes, and I've just mentioned Oasis. But they did a cover of it in the 90s, and I always listened to it. And the opening line to the song, kind of, I used to sing it, but never really kind of dwelled on the meaning. It's pretty. The opening line is, "I am he, as you are he, as you are me, and we are all together." It just basically means we're all one, But of course, we don't want to admit we've got anything in common with Lorne, but I'm sorry to tell you, you fucking do, so get over it. We're all one entity. So to learn about him, in a way, is to learn about ourselves. It's like if you study I don't like to call him evil, but if you study, what's the word I'd like to say? If you study devilry, I like that, devilry. If you study devilry, in other words, a bad person, on the level of that, on that level, he is bad. If you study that, it can help you to avoid the pitfalls. That's the whole point of what religion was supposed to be. I don't want to fucking go in too deep about that, but, it was supposed to guide us, and it's been misused, and it's fucking gone crazy, So, I kind of look at people, my heroes, of which there are, a few, the odd sports star, musicians, philosophers, writers. And you want to know as much as you can about them. You want to know what inspired them, where do they get their insights from, what has their background been like. You want to know all you can about them to help you, and because it's interesting. But from a different side of the same coin is learning about Lorne. How did this guy end up to be that character that you see on your screen? How did he? What happened? Of course, we've all been desperate and trying to get as much information as we can. And there was the revelation a few months ago about what he got up to before he met Kayla, and there was the girl that he met on MySpace, of which I'm not going to slip up and mention her name again. There was it was an amazing revelation that this person had been involved in this underage girl before Kayla. I was convinced that Kayla was the first time. My theories about him and about his level of devilry, I'm going to be using that a lot, were blown out of proportion. I misjudged him, which sounds fucking ridiculous if you read the chat log. Of course, only a moron would think that, he never even meant to do it or anything like that. But I used to think he was just an opportunist. He kind of is, but there's more to it than that. There's a level of sophisticated devilry there. I'm gonna let me know if it pisses you off, because it probably will, using that word. But he's a manipulator. Of course, you can see that from the chat log. But, to say that he had the relationship with this potentially 14, 15-year-old girl, and it went on for quite a while, and he comes out with phrases like, we cared about each other. It's like, man, he said that in a conversation with Tiffany when he said that he was in this relationship. There was something went on there with regard to her flashing him. It's very difficult to get. That says to me that there was some sexual element to it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come out with that. Now, where the truth is, we'll never know, because the thing is, Lorne doesn't even know what the truth is. He can't even register. The truth doesn't register. It's not a part of his reality. So he's never going to convey. So every story that he tells is his own twisted story. So how on earth is he going to tell it to anybody else? Every story that he will tell will be to paint him in a good light, because he can't see himself as being bad, and he can't see himself as making a mistake, because he's too weak and vulnerable to admit it. And that's why he's never changed, because it's only through admitting your mistakes that you can grow and you can learn from them. But in his world, he can't make mistakes. And that's, the main part of him not taking responsibility. The thing I wanted to talk about, really, is, can he be fixed? And it's something that we've discussed. I think we touched upon it in some of the other streams. This video could be very short. I might as well end it after the next bit I'm going to talk about, because it pretty much, the book stops here. I'm in the middle of reading a book by Jordan Peterson. He's a Canadian clinical psychologist, if you've never heard of him. His writing style I find a little bit tricky, because I have to read sentences. He's very intelligent, but there's some fantastic videos of him on YouTube. Check out a video. Just type in Jordan Peterson debate, where he has a 30-minute conversation with this British journalist. It's really, really interesting. But there's a paragraph in the book that I just wanted to go into, and it kind of summarises. You'll understand why I say the video kind of would stop here, really. Says here, Carl Rogers, the famous humanistic psychologist, believed it was impossible to start a therapeutic relationship if the person seeking help did not want to improve. Rogers believed it was impossible to convince someone to change for the better. The desire to improve was instead the precondition for progress. I've had this is him talking. I've had court-mandated psychotherapy clients. They did not want my help. They were forced to seek it. It did not work. It was a travesty. So quite simply, what he's saying in more eloquently and intelligently than I could put is, if you don't want help and you don't want to change, you're not going to do. It's that, where does that desire come from to want to be better? It's it's like as I get older, I realise just how much of my life I wasted when I was younger. I mean, I was never as bad as Lorne, but it kind of, I don't let it get me down because it's part of being young. But I just wish I had some of that desire back when I was younger to improve like I do now. It's like I don't waste time anymore. I'm, I don't eat junk food at all. I very rarely drink. I'm always trying to always trying to learn things. I spend very much time on recreation. It doesn't really. I'm going on holiday in a few weeks to Thailand again. Not for the reasons you might think. Well, you never know. But that's my recreation. I work. I exercise intensely every day. I read. Every now and again I might. You've got to relax. You've just got to relax sometimes. But the point I'm making, I'm always trying to do something productive, and then my holiday is kind of my reward for all my hard work. It's from my perspective this year, fuck me, it's been nuts. I mean, I've been on. I've travelled to 3 different continents. 5 different countries. It doesn't matter. But the point is, it's been a busy year. Work and personal life. And it's all about getting as much as I can. Of course, there are people, Jesus Christ, I'm nowhere and nothing really in the grand scheme of things. But from my own perspective and where I started and how misguided I used to be, I've not done too bad really. I look back and I think, well, at least you've done a bit. At least you've got out there. You got yourself a reasonable job and made some friends and had some amazing experiences, and you've travelled, blah, 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 blah. Even these videos, they mean something to me because people get something out of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's some great stuff with Lorne and some new people that are doing some content where they go over the chat log, and that's fantastic because it can be really entertaining. And I used to do stuff like that, but I like doing stuff that people can get something out of. You know what I mean? It's like it's a different way of thinking, but to sort of incorporate it into the Lorne thing, it's brilliant because there's so many different aspects to it, and everybody does a different style of videos, and some people go over the content because it's fucking hilarious, isn't it? The content with regard to the kind of all of the calls just hilarious. It's just you can't put your finger on exactly what it is that's so funny. It's fucking hilarious. It really, really is. You can never get tired of it. But I got this desire to want to be better no matter what. Some of the shit that I've had to put up with, and the failure that I've had to meet, you wouldn't fucking believe. Not to say that I'm the hardest done to person in the world, but it's having sunk pretty fucking low, believe me, and knowing what a waste that is, and knowing I can do better, and realising that I fucked up, and realising that life can be more than that, and having these standards makes me want to be better all the time. I've done things that are terrible. I've done some pretty terrible shit. You know what I mean? Not like trying fucking kids when I'm 30 odd like Lorne, but I've done some pretty shitty stuff in my life, and some of the things that I've said and done to other people, and judgments that I've made about people, and things like that. It's pretty shit. I don't condemn myself for it because I didn't know any better. This is why I don't try to vilify Lorne too much. We're gonna cover that in a more detailed stream that's coming up soon with regard to the ethics of the trolling and all that. I know we've touched upon it before, but I find it an infinitely fascinating subject. Because it's fun to explore as long as everybody remains open-minded and respect every other person's position rather than getting on their high horse. You know what I mean? Which, some people do, and I've done it in the past. But you've got to realize it. Don't take all of this, personally or even seriously. We're just talking about a sex offender at the end of the day. But yeah, with regard to the sort of this kind of desire, I don't know if that's the right word, but this kind of thing that I've got inside me that tells me I must constantly. Ambition is, there's people at my place that are ridiculously more ambitious than me. I don't have any specific ambition to climb to the top of the ladder in the field that I work in, because you have to. You have to sell your soul, really, to get there. I'm not saying that the people that do that, there's anything wrong with them or the bad people, but you have to sacrifice a lot. And my perspective might change, but at the minute that doesn't interest me. I'm content with what I'm doing. There's other opportunities along the way, but ambition can be many other things, like quietening your mind, learning other skills, meditation and things like that, and exercise, learning new skills, learning language, all these different kind of things about self-improvement, improving your relationships with other people, becoming more knowledgeable. There's so many things that you can do. And it kind of where does that, it's like I was trying to touch upon before I got sidetracked. I think that for me, that kind of will to try and to always do, to always improve myself as much as possible. I mean, now that I'm talking about it, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure if I can articulate where that comes from, but I think it's having sunk so low and knowing what that feels like and not wanting that to happen again and just wanting more for yourself. But you look at, and also I have to be grateful for the benefits he had when I was younger, that a lot of people in the world don't have. And if you look at Lorne, why does this thing about can he be fixed? Because he doesn't have this, because he doesn't want to get better. How could he? He can't. As it stands, as his state of mind is, as I understand his state of mind to be at the minute, and the proof's in the pudding. All you have to do is listen to that ridiculous rant that he went on in court when I was there, when I lost my shit and laughed like I've never laughed in my entire life. Laughed more than I've ever laughed watching The Simpsons. It was just hilarious to listening to him say he wants to do his cooking show. It's funny on so many levels because it wasn't a cooking show. It's like he thought that it was popular, number one. That makes it funny. Number two, he thought that somehow that would alter the way that the court was going to go. He also thought that somehow the judge would understand what he was going on about. Also, he didn't really get that it would be embarrassing. It was just, on every way you look at it, it's fucking funny. And the way he said it as well, you had to be there really to kind of. It was just how pathetic he sounded. I just remember sitting there like I couldn't hold my shit together. I just remember having my head down because it was getting so bad. I didn't want anybody else in the courtroom to see me. I'm sure the judge took a look at me, Judge Woodcock, the Honourable Judge Woodcock. I'm sure he glanced at me and saw me losing my shit. Oh, it's so funny. But yeah, we know he doesn't have this will to get better. He says he does, but he doesn't. He's operating on such a basic level, and this is the thing with Lorne. His level of... You've always got... there's always the opportunity to raise your level of consciousness, right? Which is a difficult thing to do. Life can force you into it if you don't do it voluntarily. I'm sorry to bore you with Bible shit, but I will do. It says in the Bible... I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but something along the lines of you will be dragged into heaven kicking or screaming, which basically means if you don't try and improve yourself, life will do it for you in a number of ways. So, for instance, it's like karma, innit? If you spend all your life being a lazy bum and doing nothing, eating junk food and don't do anything worthwhile, chances are you'll probably have some kind of disaster or illness, and that'll force you into dealing with challenges that you wouldn't necessarily want to deal with. It's like just as a kind of a minor example, like every weekend when I'm off work, I do like weights every day in the week, and then when I'm off at the weekend, I'll get up at like 5-6 o'clock in the morning and do like a ridiculously long run until I'm virtually being sick. And if you want motivation, listening to David Goggins, especially when he does that podcast with Joe Rogan. I mean, man, I feel like I'm such a pussy when I listen to him. I'm thinking, fucking hell, I'm getting out of breath. And what that guy put himself through. And it just inspires you to just exercise to the point of total exhaustion. And it sets you up for the rest of the day then. You think, right, I can maybe relax and enjoy myself now because I've whipped myself to the bone. And that suffering that you go through is worthwhile. And you've got to do that in life. You've got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations because life will do it to you if you don't. If you spend all your days listening to Lorne videos and that's all you do, you're fucked. But there's nothing wrong with the odd distraction and listen to it all the time. There is a bit of a danger inherent with all this stuff. I remember waking up one day, I think it was when I first started doing videos. I woke up and I shit you not, the first thing that entered my head was Lorne Armstrong. And I thought, you know what? You've gone to this is a problem now. Because it was taking over. It was at the time my channel was doing like really well, and I was gaining like 10 subscribers, 20 subscribers a day, and it was like the subscriber count went beyond 2,000, and I was like getting more and more popular, if you want to say that. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'll keep talking about Lorne. I was making all these videos, and it was like taking over. I was like, no, I had to step back a little bit. It's just like anything else, if you spend all your days, all day, every day playing computer games, it's not healthy, is it? So it's the sort of self-sacrifice that Lorne's not willing to do. He's always got to take the easy way out of everything, hasn't he? He can't, it's like, look at the Betty situation. The easiest thing for him to do was run away and to not face his responsibility. The hardest thing to do, which he doesn't get it. He doesn't realise that the hardest thing to do would have been, in the long run, the easiest thing to do. Because look at the shit it's caused. If he'd have gone to Betty and said, Betty, I'm really sorry. I've bitten off more than I can chew. I've spent all your money. I don't know. I'm really sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but what I will do is I will work off that debt immediately. I'll do what I can, and I will start paying you back. Do you know what? From what I know about Betty and everything, she would have said, right, you're an arsehole, but fair enough. Get to work and we'll see what we can do. I don't think she'd have condemned him. Of course, you're not going to be happy about it. But he didn't, did he? He just fucking ran off with an old couple's money. And this is why it's so easy to hate on the guy. It's just remarkable, really. But that would have been hard. Can you imagine looking her in the eyes and facing up to your failure? Having that amount of embarrassment, having to sacrifice your own free time, and face the unknown. It would have been a ridiculously hard thing to do. But you know what? Most people, I don't know if most, but most people wouldn't have got into that situation in the first place. It only allowed it to happen because he was ill prepared. I don't think he went in it to try and scam her, but at no point did it enter his brain that he had to do right by her. Now, we all look after ourselves primarily, and we've got to. But when you get to a certain level of awareness and intelligence, you realise that doing the right thing by other people, you're doing right to yourself. Karma will catch up with you eventually. You can screw people over all you want, but you won't have a decent quality of life. It may look like you do in the short term, but you won't. He's too stupid to realise that, and he thought, right, okay, I've got a problem. I've got all this money. I can't do the work. I'll run away. And Luke, where is he now? He's in prison. So karma has come into effect, and because of the community and all that, bet he's getting some money back, which is great. So he's never willing, that desire. You see, there's many different ways of looking at it, right? He doesn't want to suffer. Nobody is consciously insane, right? Nobody chooses. The deepest part of yourself doesn't choose to be unhappy. But we're at a very strange level of development as human beings. We have our ego, or the unobserved mind. Not ego as in I'm great. Ego to me is the unobserved mind. That judges and speaks through memory and anticipation, all that kind of thing. You've got to learn a few books about the human mind to understand exactly what I mean. But from my perspective, you've got to understand what your ego is, and only then does it subside. You've got to be aware of how your mind works, and your emotions and all that kind of stuff, and it's tricky. So Lorne is consumed. He's like a spider that's spun this ridiculous web, and he's tangled on his, he's caught up on the webs he's spun himself, and he's trying to get out of it, and he's wriggling, and he doesn't know what to do, because he's consumed by it. He's consumed by, ultimately, his own failure, but he doesn't see it that way. He's been wronged. It's like all this catfishing and whatnot. It's like he'd blame all that on the people that were doing it without realising that all he had to do was not pick the phone up. But he wouldn't see that. From his perspective, everybody that's fucked him over is evil, and he's the good one. He's the victim. From his perspective, this is why try not to view him as pure evil. It's something we'll talk about. I don't want to. It's very controversial to say that, but when you judge another person like that, it's a very dark, tricky path that you walk down. Understanding is the key. So from his perspective, we're the evil ones. I would be evil to him because I make videos about him, and I judge him, and I condemn him, and I humiliate him. So from his perspective, he's somebody who's been wronged because his dad left him when he was younger. His mother struggled, his brothers bullied him. He got wronged by people at his school. Then, he got fucked about by women. He probably lost his job at the Air Force or whatever it was. Then, Paul, all these people, Paul, or all these characters, Amanda James, from his perspective, he's been repeatedly let down, taken advantage of, humiliated, everywhere he turns. And from his perspective, that's his reality. So, he's wrong, because he doesn't see the bigger picture. He doesn't have the ability to at the minute. It's a strange thing. It's all about free will. How free is our will? There's theories, there's philosophy that says we don't have any free will. I had this experience, right? This shamanic experience that was I don't expect you to believe me. If anybody was telling me this shit, I probably wouldn't either. But believe me when I said I reached this place that's just beyond what you could imagine. And one of the insights that I got when I was like coming back down to what we would call reality is that this is all a play. You think that this is real, but it isn't. Like this reality. The best way of describing it is, like when you have a dream, and when you're in that dream, you think you don't question that it's real, but when you wake up, you think, fucking hell, how could I have thought that was real? Why didn't I realise it was a dream? And that's what this life's like. When we... right, you get what I'm saying. I don't want to... It's controversial. I don't expect a lot of people to buy into it. That's fine. But one of the insights that I got is this is all a play. And, Shakespeare said the same thing, in a lot of his, some philosophers have said the same thing. It's like, it's kind of like we've all got this part to play, and it's all a little drama that's going on, and it's beyond our ability as humans, the way that the mind works, to comprehend exactly what this life is exactly. And you don't really, it's nice to step outside and see it for what it is. But one of the problems that I had when I had this experience and then I sort of drifted back was I struggled to fit back into this life. I was like, this is what the fuck's going on. It was pretty scary. It was pretty fucking scary. But anyway, you know what I'm like. I go on about this stuff. That's I think if you're listening to this, you're probably used to it. So it's kind of like, this kind of if you look at Lorne's life and the disadvantages he's had, that I know, people have had worse disadvantages and sort of come out of it and done well with their lives. He chooses not to, but why does he choose not to? Where's the difference between a decision that he makes and a decision that I make? His life is infinitely different than mine. Infinitely. It's a ridiculous thing to say, to imagine if you was Lorne Armstrong, because it's ridiculous. You can't. We're all... But the way I look at it is, we're not that different. If we... That spirit that we are is all identical. And that's another insight that I got is... well, we're going... Maybe I'm going a bit too deep with this. But with Lorne... why he clings on, this is the way I see it, he clings on to his grief, not grief, but he clings on to his, what's the word I'm looking for, his anger, and that massive ball of that aura of darkness that he's got, which has accumulated throughout his life. Because he's constantly... It's like a snowball. It's like the snowball effect. It's rolling down the hill and picking up more and more shit because he keeps feeling he's being wronged, so the world's wronged him, and he's getting angrier and angrier and madder and madder. And that dark aura that I felt in his presence, it's the accumulation of... People do wrong you in this life. But you have to have a certain level of unconsciousness to let people do that. And when you realise that people are just looking out for themselves and everybody's in survival mode, that judgment that you throw upon them disappears. But Lorne can't ever see that. He hasn't got, everybody's wronged him. Everybody's a piece of shit, aren't they? Apart from him. He's like a child. That's what children do. He's never grown up. I have a theory about... it's not... it's not a fucking... any kind of... it's not any kind of crazy theory that's totally out there, but I do have a theory that I'm going to talk about why I think that Lorne is stuck and he can't ever get out of it. Why he doesn't make these decisions. It's like... It seems to be so simple. Just get a grip of yourself, man. Just... strive to be better. But from his perspective, being better is to just get out of prison and carry on drinking. It's tough. I'll not let's just say him. Let's just say he decides like this. I'm going to change for the better, and something remarkable happens to him when he's in prison, and he has an epiphany, and some moment of enlightenment. Let's just say that happens. He's got it tough, hasn't he? He's a registered sex offender. He's nearly 50. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have anywhere to live, as I understand it. He doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have any particular qualifications. What's he going to do? It would take... He'd need... It depends on the level of change that he would adopt. Would he be willing to let go of all his grievances? If he did, if he was to become totally enlightened, he could have a very happy life. Living in that part of the world, spending his time in nature, fishing, doing things, helping people. If he dedicated his life to helping people, his life would turn around. They wouldn't have to know where he came from, and it didn't matter. It'd be fucking hard. Very hard. He'd have to, give up his selfish pursuits, like his consistent drinking that helps him block out his memories. But let's just say he decided he wanted to be better, but wasn't able to get rid of all his grievances, and he still had these sexual proclivities. Is that a word? Yeah. He'd need a team of specialists around him 24 hours a day for months. The amount of care that would be required in order to change him would be remarkable. It would mean he'd need a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a spiritual guide, a nutritionist, a probation officer, a lawyer, have I said nutritionist? Yeah. Personal trainer. He'd need a cleaner. He would need a tailor. He would need... What else? There's got to be something else on there. Chef, nutritionist, same thing. A life coach. Yeah, that's quite a lot of people, innit? He would need them around him all day, every day, to sort himself out. Because if he was only able to go so far and said, right, I want to get better, but he still hung on to his grievances, because in order to get rid of those, he'd need some serious work. He'd need some serious counselling. He'd need some kind of shock therapy. Because it's like one of the conversations he had with Tiffany where she really fucking laid it on him. And got him to... It was the I am a predator calls, which are great. And she finally got him to admit that he was a predator. But... And you thought, you know what? He's getting some... She's actually getting somewhere here, because... It wasn't just that he said those things like I am this and that, which when you listen back, she was just telling him what she wanted. He was just telling her what she wanted to hear. But he ended up at the end of it just saying, I never wanted to go to the house. After everything that she said, he slipped back and went, I never wanted to go there. And you're just like, man, what? At that point, more than any other, you realise that guy was a lost cause. That there was no going back. That he's just so deeply... He's so simplistic in his ways. It's like the more I'm talking about it now, I think he just doesn't have that level of awareness and consciousness because you raise your consciousness through either ridiculous amounts of self-sacrifice, or life's challenges will make you. It's just growing up. Raising your level of consciousness is just becoming wiser. We're at a stage, and humans now have the ability to raise it voluntarily, which is the advantage of humans. You can do that through meditation, psychedelics, shamanic experiences like I've had. You can do it, really intense exercise, life or death situations. So that's kind of where we're at. Because Lorne's never accepted the true challenges of life and took responsibility, he's never grown. because in order to grow, you have to fail. But in Lorne's mind, he's never failed. That's it. It's fucking remarkable. But so really, the summary of the video is, what would it take to? It's a weird one, really, because really all it would take to fix him is one decision that he's got the ability to make, and that's, I want to be better. It's like it works on a simple scale. He could be lying in bed one night in that prison and he could hear something, or someone could kick the shit out of him, or something could occur to him and think, where am I? What am I doing? But it could happen. I genuinely believe that could happen for anybody, but the amount of work he would have to do, because, you've had people on death row that have had enlightenment experiences, and murderers, gangland murderers and mob people and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So anyway, so you've got that level of that quick decision, or it being forced upon him. If it was to be forced upon him to change, and he didn't want to, you're talking all them people around him, like I said, to force him into it. And it would take some kind of like torture, like electroshock therapy. It's the only way. Yeah, so anyway, I must go. Yeah, that's kind of it. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I do like, we should have a live stream coming up soon. I'm not sure if it'll be this weekend, but definitely soon. So thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry it's been a while since I made the last video. Just please let me know if you've enjoyed it. Let me know if you still like listening to me talk about Lorne, because like I said, it's I do still enjoy doing them every so often. So guys, I do appreciate you listening. It was good to talk to you again. I'll speak to you soon.